brain. Okay. 1 second, I just got the announcement that it's being recorded.
Sorry.
I do brain fitness workshops. So while I am part of the bigger Maintain Your Brain group, I really focus on hands-on activities that help get our minds sharp, especially as we age, because we do tend to decrease in some of our skills. And I'm going to take you through what my considerations are in these workshops. And then the best way for you to get a feel for it is for me to show you examples of the kinds of activities we do. And you're more than welcome to do them out loud, even though you'll be muted, but you can hear yourself. So why don't we get started? I'm going to tell you here that I've been a developmental psychologist for 25 years. And basically what that means is that I went to graduate school to learn about how we develop our thinking skills from infancy through adulthood. So it could be memory, it could be language, it could be morality. There are many aspects to thinking. And basically that's what developmental psychology looked at. Now, okay. I do brain fitness groups with adults. I used to do them with children also one-on-one, but I only work with adults now. The workshops are either in person or Zoom, and Zoom basically started with COVID. The populations I work with are varied. They're typically from 50, and I said 102. I actually did have people in some of my workshops who are 100 and over. And I also work with special populations, so Parkinson's groups, early stage dementia, which I work with Pam, and people who basically have had some head injuries or whatever it may be, and people can go at their own pace. Now, why do I do workshops? Well, the reason for doing workshops is that it gives us the ability to strengthen a whole variety of skills, thinking skills that basically decline with age. And we do this by actually doing hands-on activities that are fun, but they're also challenging, because if they weren't challenging, it wouldn't be helping our brains to grow. And also, even on Zoom, there's an atmosphere that gets created by everyone being in a group, and it's friendly, it's comfortable, it's a social setting. So even though you're in your own space, you feel like you're part of a group, which is very important. Now, what I do is the activities target specific thinking skills like long-term memory, let's say, and they do always provide a level of challenge, but not frustration, because if you're frustrated, you won't learn anything. And every workshop I do can be adjusted to the needs of the participants. So with some groups, I can go more quickly, or I could be more challenging with them. Other groups I have to do more slowly, or I have to make the activity simpler. But it's easy for me to adjust it because there are so many levels of difficulty in any exercise. Now, no single activity engages the entire brain, okay? So for example, let me just move something. In the gym, if you go to a gym, no single exercise machine is going to get you completely physically fit. It's going to work on a part of you. And the more varied the activities we do, the more effective the workout. So mentally, we need a balanced and a diverse workout so that more of our brain is engaged. So you may do certain things now that work your brain, puzzles or this and that, but you're not targeting as wide a variety of thinking skills as you can when you work it, for instance, in my workshop, because I use a whole multitude of activities that target different thinking skills. Now, when I say normal aging, I mean, these things happen to everybody, these declines, but They also happen for other reasons. They happen from illness, they happen from injury, they happen from medication, chemotherapy. But in all, everyone declines to some extent just by getting older. Attention skills are key. If we don't pay, it's like the umbrella. If we don't pay attention, if we can't focus, which we tend to lose the ability to do, everything else suffers, all our other thinking skills. We miss information. We don't get the full picture. The other skills, thinking skills that are important, long-term memory, short-term and working memory, which I will tell you are sometimes are used interchangeably. The difference is that short-term memory tends to be quick. Like if you're watching an infomercial and they give you a telephone number and you want to keep it in your head just long enough to go write it down. That's short-term memory. Working memory would be if you get that phone number and then someone comes into the room and tries to get your attention. And all of a sudden, remembering that phone number is a little more of a process. That's working memory. Processing speed, how quickly we can process information that's out there. This tends to slow down more than anything else. The more we all think it's memory, but processing speed really slows down. The good thing is that it also is one of the easiest skills to build up. Executive functioning, that basically covers your daily life, the routine tasks you do, making decisions, problem solving, getting out of the house with all the things you need, being able to keep organization in your life. And problem solving is an interesting area because when you problem solve, you're really putting on your thinking cap, and it fosters creativity. Visual thinking, we all visually think when you're taking a walk, when you're driving, when you read, you're doing a lot of visual thinking, creating pictures in your heads, and logic and reasoning. Okay, so these are all the different components besides my workshop that are important. And you've seen webinars, or maybe you've seen the webinars that were done on these. For example, exercise, very important. It was covered in another webinar. It's important because it brings oxygen to your brain and it gets your brain working. You're taking in a lot of stimuli when you're exercising. Okay, nourishing your brain, basically that's also was in a webinar. And what's good for your heart is good for your brain. So I'm not saying you can't eat junk food ever, but just remember that your brain is an organ and it needs nourishment to work well, like other parts of your body. Hydration is so important. I can't emphasize it enough. We all go through periods of time where we say, I'm not thirsty. I don't feel thirsty. But your body needs fluids. And I don't mean you have to be drinking gallons of liquid all day, but if you wait till you feel thirsty, you've waited too long. Short-term memory is severely affected by dehydration. I mean, to the point where, and I've witnessed this in people, they actually lose the ability to speak. They speak gibberish and they don't even realize it because their memory for words just is not there. Concentrating is different. You may find if you have a headache or you feel a little fuzzy, drink water or drink some liquid. It doesn't have to just be water. It affects your attention and your clarity. And I will tell you that I just went for my annual checkup and I got my blood work and the doctor said, everything's perfect, but you need to drink more water. And I don't know, I wasn't sure how he knew that from a blood test, but basically I need more electrolytes. And so keep that in mind. It's very important. Sleeping.
Where do you get the electrolytes from?
You can get it from drinks that have electrolytes added. They even sell water with electrolytes. Gatorade has electrolytes.
No, it's too much sugar.
But they have non-sweet versions of these, no sugar versions. Apple juice is great if you need electrolytes. And I'm sure if you looked it up, you would find many other sources. It's really important. Electrolytes will show up in the potassium in your body and the sodium in your body and all of those things that we don't realize we may be lacking, but we are. Now, sleeping or resting or napping, it's key. And I'll tell you why. What happens is in any given day, so much stimuli is coming in, everything we look at, everything we hear, we see, and we don't need to hold on to all that information in our memories, only certain things. So when we sleep, our brain has this great way of cleaning itself out, getting rid of stuff we don't need, organizing things we do need. It's almost like a filing system so that when we wake up, we're clear-headed for the new day. And you can get that with napping. It's just try to let your body and mind rest, because otherwise you're just going to have, your head's going to be clouded and filled with irrelevant information that you don't need, that will get in the way of thinking clearly. Socializing, which you're doing here, which we do in live groups, you do them in many groups. If you socialize, you will, and laughing, you will find that you're going to stay much sharper, because think about it, when you're home alone and you're even if you're reading or watching TV, you're not engaging with anyone. When you talk to people or are with other people, you have to listen, you have to comprehend and pay attention, you have to figure out what you're going to say in response that makes sense. You're using so much of your brain. And I know people isolate, especially during COVID. That's why these Zoom workshops were really a great thing to do. All right, now what we do is giving our brains a mental workout. And what I want to tell you basically is that brain fitness should not be too easy or too difficult. Imagine yourself in a gym, and you can lift 5-pound weights. Now, if all you do is lift 1-pound weights, it's too easy. It's not going to do anything for you at this point because you're way past that. But if I give you 10-pound weights or 20-pound weights when you can only lift 5, you're not going to be able to do it. So you've made no progress if you go on either end. So you need to push yourself, challenge yourself, but it's got to be within a range of what you can do. And the gym is an easy example to imagine. Now, you already do, I'm sure, many activities during the day that challenge you. Reading is great, unless you're rereading the same thing over and over and over again, then it's not as challenging. Being in a book club is even better because you're also socializing and having conversations. Any strategy games, if you play them, and I didn't list them all, are wonderful for your brain, because each game, while you know how to play the game, it's a new endeavor. Each time you play, you get new cards, you get new pieces. Puzzles are great, and I really recommend doing them as much, on a daily basis. Make it part of your routine if there are any you like. If you play an instrument by any chance, keep doing it. Playing music is one of the best exercises for our brains. It uses more parts of the brain than almost anything. Knitting is great. Cooking and figuring out the ingredients, all wonderful for your brain. But you need to change your routine, because that's the same thing as something being too easy. So for example, routines become automatic, like things you do, you're using the same pathway in your brain over and over and over again. So if I'm washing dishes, I could be watching TV. If I'm
Shelley, one moment. Can you please make sure that you all mute, because we're hearing a lot of feedback. So please mute your phones.
okay. Now, if you do things that are not routine, you're you're basically shocking your brain into creating new pathways. New pathways are creating more neurons, and it makes your brain more alive, and it's firing more. It's information. It's like your brain is hitting the gym. So, for example, this is one of my favorites. There have been articles. The first one I read was in the New York Times, and it was how I grew brain cells while brushing my teeth. And basically, the whole idea is that you use your non-dominant hand periodically for various tasks. So for instance, if I'm right-handed, I try to do some things here and there with my left hand, like brushing my teeth. So here's what goes on. Here's what's in your head, right? And there are two halves to our brains, and they're connected by bundles of nerves. So they're always sending information back and forth to get things done. But when you have a routine, you don't need to be transferring information that much because it's all set. The path is there. You don't need to like build it. But when you change your routine and there's something new, all of a sudden it requires a lot of transfer of information to get it done. So your brain has to work harder, and creativity is really stimulated when you do that because your brain is trying to figure out, how do I get this done? Even brushing your teeth with your other hand. When I started with my left hand, it was, if you think about it, it's kind of awkward if you just imagine it like, well, how do I hold it if I'm on this side? Like when I'm on, I don't know, it all feels awkward, and that's good. That means my brain is trying to figure out how to get it done. So these are just some examples of things you can do whenever, during the day. Try it. It doesn't have to be a constant thing. Brushing your teeth, writing. If you try writing now with your other hand, signing your name, you'll be shocked. It'll look like a third grader signed your name. Holding your phone even with your other hand may feel a little awkward. Try opening your car door with your other hand. And these are just everyday tasks. Washing dishes with your other hand, it feels strange. Texting, I have a lot of trouble texting with my other hand, and chopsticks, forget it. Opening jars with your other hand, and even stirring, like if you put milk in your coffee and you want to stir with your other hand. You are really doing your brain a favor when you do that. Now, I want to show you a video. This is called the Nun Study, N-U-N, and it takes place in Minnesota. And this study started years ago. It's still ongoing, and it's truly amazing. These are, well, you'll watch it, you'll see.
On a quiet hilltop in rural Minnesota stands the convent of the School Sisters of Notre Dame. It might look like a house of rest. Inside, it's anything but. From dusk to dawn, the sisters are active, both physically
29, 30.
and mentally,
China is the most powerful communist nation in the world.
and living very long lives.
These are the names of 28 sisters in this building who are over 90. And you've got 6 sisters who are over 100.
So how is it that these sisters live such long, active, and lucid lives when many people 20, 30, even 40 years younger fall into decline with failing bodies and fading minds? That's a question researcher David Snowden has spent more than a decade trying to answer.
These are, in many ways, super nuns that have had probably very good genes, wonderful upbringing, a good, clean, active, giving life.
Sister Esther has been at the convent since she retired 6 years ago, at the age of 96.
I'm 102. I'm going to be 103 in December.
Do you feel 102?
Sometimes I feel 200.
Sister Esther is one of the participants in the Nun Study, in which each of the sisters has agreed to donate her brain to research.
When people hear we willed our brains to them, they say, "Ooh, you did?" Well, then what good to us after we die?
The goal is to learn more about how conditions like Alzheimer's disease
A
develop.
cross-section
In
of
studying
brain
dozens of brains, Snowden made a remarkable discovery.
About half the sisters are mentally normal when they die. And what is quite surprising to us is we find a significant number of them have full-blown Alzheimer's disease in their brain, yet are acting normally.
The question is, if so many sisters' brains show evidence of Alzheimer's, why do so few of them have any of the memory loss and physical failings that are characteristic of the disease? The answer may have something to do with how active their minds are, even into old age.
They tell me that if you work puzzles, you can keep your mind active. So I puzzle.
Sister Jane Francis is 95.
Gotta keep thinking. Oh, I'm young.
87-year-old Sister Clarissa likes to follow baseball.
But I've been a sport fan all my life.
103-year-old Sister Mathia keeps focused by knitting.
If you don't keep your mind on this thing, you might slip one and have trouble later on.
Many of these older sisters have something in common besides longevity. They were teachers with a college education.
We found that the higher educated sisters had a better chance of living to old age, and once they got to old age, that the higher educated sisters had better mental and physical function.
Snowden believes that's because the better developed a person's brain is early in life, the better able it is to fight off degenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's later on.
Right arm,
Poor mental function obviously is not inevitable. You can see that just by walking around the place.
front, three, front.
It may also have to do with the fact that the nuns live in a supportive community and not alone, and they have deep religious faith, both of which have been shown to lower the chances of developing heart disease and stroke. What researchers are wondering is, just how long will these women live?
I might live a little bit longer, yeah. Depends on what God wants.
Yeah.
What the nuns seem to show is how old your body and mind are doesn't matter. It's how active you have kept them for all of your life. In Mankato, Minnesota, I'm John Roberts for Eye on America.
Okay. So, that was the nun study, and it is ongoing, and they've made so many more discoveries, and they understand much more now. You can just Google the nun study Minnesota, and there are lots of YouTube videos that are more current. But I just find it very interesting, and I hear that there are people who have full-blown Alzheimer's and have no signs of it whatsoever. So it's good to know. So what I'm going to do now is show you some of the exercises we do in the workshop. And some of these will be new to people who have even been in my workshops. And they all focus on particular thinking skills. So as a warm-up, and also feel free to go along with me as we do it out loud for yourself. So this is an exercise called the colored arrow exercise. I like this as a warm-up. Everyone does it out loud together, which means they're not talking in unison, which is fine. So this is really good for attention, long-term memory, working memory, visual thinking, and processing speed, which I told you is key. We need to speed up our thinking because I point to the arrows, and the speed that I point to them determines how quickly I'm asking you to think. So I don't start really quickly, but over time. So for example, I might say, as I point to an arrow, tell me the color of the arrows. So we would go blue, yellow, red, green, red, yellow, blue, red. Okay. Then I might say, okay, now when I point, tell me the direction of the arrow. It's either left, right, up, or down. So it'd be left, left, up, left, left, right, up, down. Now, start getting a little trickier. And again, this is over time. I might say to you, now what I want you to do is for every yellow and red arrow, I want you to tell me the color. For every blue and green arrow, I want you to tell me the direction. Well, that's a lot to keep in your head. So for example, this would be right, yellow, red, down, red, yellow, left, red. See how that works? So there are so many things you can do with just this block of arrows, and it's really great. And as you do it, even if I keep changing the colors of the arrows, whatever it is, you get better at it. Your brain learns how to do it. It's building up all these skills. Another exercise I like to do is called the Stroop test. And you can find this online as well. It was developed by a Dr. Stroop, and it works on, I'll explain what selective attention is, but it's attention, working memory, your visual thinking, your processing speed again. So what we have here are words that are colors written in color. And what I'm interested in is not the word, but the color of the ink that each word is written in. So as I point, you would all say, blue, yellow, red, purple, black. Let's continue. What is this one? Well, now we have yellow, red, blue, green, purple. The bottom words don't match the colors, and it's much more difficult to do that. And the reason for that is because our brains process words much more quickly than they recognize colors. So even though I've been doing this for a long time, I still have a slight pause before I can say the color of the ink when it doesn't match the words. So that is what selective attention is. I am trying to inhibit the word from taking over the color. And again, it's a fun, engaging, opening exercise for the group. Now, let's look at some short-term and long-term memory exercises. Both of these slow down with age, and the decline typically becomes noticeable in our 50s or 60s. And part of the reason is because, yes, we're getting older and things tend to slow down, but we don't have as many demands on us to use these. When we were growing up, there was school, then there were jobs, raising a family or running a household, going to work. All of those things demanded a huge reliance on our thinking skills, and short-term and long-term memory were key. But as we get older, and especially as we retire, there aren't as many demands to use them. And when you don't use them, they just don't stay as sharp. It's the same with your body. If you don't do anything to keep it healthy and fit, it's going to start to slow down. Now, these are just some examples, which I always like because they all happen to me. One is I came in here for something, but I can't remember what. I can't tell you how many times I've walked from my living room to my kitchen and I can't remember what I was going in there for. And I know what it is before I leave the living room, but I can't remember. And basically research has been done on this. And what they found is that one group of people were in a large room and they were told to get something at the other end of the room. Another group of people had to go and get that same thing, but they had to go into the next room to get it. The people in the same room were much better at remembering what they were going to get. And that's because our brains actually readjust when we go into a new room, a new environment. And that takes away from what we were remembering. So when you're in the same room, your environment isn't changing. So my advice to people is to just move into a studio apartment and your memory will be great and you'll always remember what you wanted to get. Another one is nice to meet you. I already forgot your name. That happens a lot to many of us. There are a lot of reasons for that. One is, we're a little self-conscious when we're meeting someone, we're not paying full attention. We know we have to introduce ourselves. So my suggestion, and what is suggested, is that you say the person's name when you're introduced. So if you meet me, you say, "Hi, Shelley," and then repeat the name to yourself a few times. It helps to embed it. Or if you can associate the name with something else, that's also a good thing. For instance, my name is Shelley, so you may say, the beach, shells. So beach will stick with you. A name has no intrinsic meaning, but the beach does. So all of a sudden shells have more of a meaning. Last thing, where are my glasses? Where are my keys? Where's my cell phone? I have literally had 2 pairs of glasses on the top of my head and said, where are my glasses? And we just forget. So whenever, keep a routine. So if there's a place you keep your keys, always put them there. You think you remember if you put them in a different place. Like I left keys in my pocket one time because I knew I was going out again, and it was a raincoat and it was raining. But by the time I went out, it wasn't raining anymore. And I couldn't find my keys. I totally forgot that I left them in my pocket. So the deal is to put your things in the same place. It really helps. Okay, an exercise that's great. Types of groups. I do it with the early dementia group. I do it, with more advanced groups. You can make it more difficult by coming up with a category that people have to come up with an answer. So for instance, if I say I want a name of a company for each letter of the alphabet, and people start throwing them out, it doesn't have to be, just people will say an A. It's not always easy. I mean, I may say name an animal, that might be easier, but name a company, you really have to draw on your long-term memory. And if I keep moving along with the letters, I'm taking control of the speed that you're doing the exercise. So again, getting you to think more quickly. So here's an example of what you might have come up with. And there could be clearly more than one answer for every letter. Okay, now word towers, another long-term memory exercise that also includes your short-term or working memory, your processing speed, and visualization. So if I say, we have the beginning of words with T-O, and on each level, you have to add the number of letters that there are spaces. So, and you can't just take a word and add an S to it and make it the next word. So you'd have to come up with what would be next, top. What about here? Here, and it goes on. And I'll tell you, as it gets up in number of spaces, it gets much more difficult. So this might be answers to this particular puzzle, and if you can go beyond that, you get the ding, ding, ding special points. By the way, I don't grade anything. I don't care how many you got right or wrong. What I care is that people try and they attempt to do the exercise and put their focus on it, because that's what's working your brain, not the right answer. Okay, word memory. Now we're into short-term memory or working memory, and this is an exercise I do a lot. This is an example. You'll see a screen and it says you're going to see 4 words associated with this category, which is fun. So right away, you know that the words are somehow related. Then you don't write anything. At this point, you just watch each word come and go. So we have this word, this, then this, then this, then stop. And then it's your job to write down as many words as you remember, and they don't have to be in order. And you get a few seconds to do that. And then you see what they were, and you see how many you got, which ones you missed. Now, as this increases, meaning the number of words, it gets to a point where it's really hard to use a typical, I'm just going to repeat the words over and over in my head, because after a while, you can't repeat that many words over and over. Our brains are not structured to remember so many pieces of information. For example, if I gave you 10 numbers and I said, I showed them to you and then said, Okay, what were they? I took them away. What were they? You would have a really hard time. But if you chunk those numbers like into a telephone number, so you made the first three the area code, the second three the exchange, and the last four is the last four numbers. Or you took, if I said to you 5,250 instead of, or I said 5250, instead of remembering four individual numbers, chunk them, make it two numbers, 52 and 50. It becomes much easier. And it's a really great mechanism for our brains to hold on to and store and remember information by chunking things. So with words, what you do is you can either do something like forming a compound word. I went to a lively comedy, okay? Or you can try to connect them by visualizing a situation and where you see this going on. Then when you go to remember them, they're in that situation. That's visualizing. All right, another activity, this is called double trouble. And this also works on working memories. So for example, if I say to you, here are four words, this is the example actually, so let me show you that. If I gave you the words knuckle, moth, and basket, and I said, you have to add one word at the end of each of them to make a compound word. Ball is a good answer. You have knuckleball, which is a pitch, a mothball, or a basketball. So if we go to the first one and we have waist, wall, news, and note, I would say to you, well, what one word could be added to the end of each of them to make four new compound words? If people are stuck, what I do is I give the first letter of the word. And people usually get it, but if they don't, or not everyone does, I then show the answer, and it's paper, waste paper, wallpaper. For grid, hem, wed, and pad, the answer would be an L if you needed it, and then lock. And you see gridlock, hemlock, wedlock, and padlock. Bread, clothes, front, and neck. We have L, and there's a bread line, a clothes line, a front line, and a neckline. And lastly, we have fire, nut, safe, and wise. And if you haven't figured it out, I'll tell you it starts with C. And then I give you the word, and it's cracker. And this is a great exercise, and it's fun. And again, people participate as a group. So sometimes they take turns. Each group takes on sort of its own life and its own way of doing things. Sometimes everyone can yell out the answers at once. Sometimes people have to wait and give other people a chance to think. Okay, thinking speed, which I told you is super duper important. How quickly we process information. So like other things we've talked about, it slows down due to age, but also lifestyle. There aren't as many demands to have to think on our feet so quickly. You know, we really have fewer demands. And as I told you before, this thinking skill is easily built up with any timed exercise that I do with you. So a good one are memory grids. Now, if people who I do see on Zoom have printers, they can print, I send a template. If not, you can draw a few of the, like 4 of these grids, let's say. And here's what happens. So you have a blank grid in front of you and you see the screen and it says you're going to see 3 numbers, okay? Then okay, now you do nothing but watch what the numbers are and watch which little square each one goes in. Whoop, sorry. Let me try that again. Okay, so we have 1 number, second number, third number. You do not write down anything until they've all disappeared. Then you fill in your blank grid and you see how many you can remember, how many numbers, how many correct squares. Sometimes you remember the numbers, not the squares. Sometimes you put the number in a wrong square. All these things happen. I promise you that you get better at this over time, and I can control how many numbers you see and how quickly they. I'm just going to show you one more. Let's say I'm going to show you 4 numbers. So we have another blank grid. You use a new clean one. And it's the same thing. So of course it gets more difficult the more numbers I give you. And we talk about what techniques people are using, and I make suggestions, and you do get better at it. And adjustments can be made. So for instance, with the early stage dementia people, I might start them out with a 4 square grid and just show them one number. And then they have to remember the 1. Or I can make a 9 instead of a 16 square grid, and I can show 2 numbers. And that works too. So it can be adjusted for any group level. Okay, Schulte tables, just so you know, this is a technique they use in speed reading. And what you do is you look at their grids that have numbers. So this is a 4 by 4, it's 16. It goes from number 1 to 16. What I ask you to do and how this works is that only your eyes, you take your eyes, this is silent. When I say go, you find the number 1 with your eyes, then you find the number 2, then you find the number 3, etc. You can't skip a number, you must go sequentially. I time you, so if I give you 1 second per number, it means I would give you 16 seconds to do this. And you would see what number you get up to. Here it is with letters, 25, A through Y, same thing, you have to go in order. And this is something that becomes very difficult to do, especially when you get to 25 and more, but you get better at it, and it's great for thinking more quickly. Okay, executive function, I told you this is problem solving, decision making, etc. So we have rebus puzzles. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. These are so popular. They're picture riddles, and they're great for problem solving and creative thinking and logic and reasoning. So for example, this is an old time rebus. It's an escort card. It's a little picture riddle. May I see you home, my dear? Okay, that's an old time. Then here's another kind of rebus puzzle. This is where every picture represents a word. So this would be knee plus and plus earth plus ball minus the B. So it'd be Neanderthal. See, knee and earth, ball without the B. Here's one. So sun minus the S is un-for. This is a target minus the TAR, unforget table, unforgettable. So that's another kind of rebus. And then these are our most typical these days. So this, they use color. So you figure it out and say, oh, blue cheese. Okay, the direction is different. It's wake up. Okay, this is one on top of the other. It's slightly overcast. Slightly overcast. Or back is in how many minutes? 5. Back in 5 minutes. So there's a zillion of them, and they're fun, and some are easier and some are more difficult. And then there are visual that use no words, like the other ones I showed you with just pictures. This is slightly different. There's water and a man is falling. So this is waterfall. This is another one. Here's a doctor. His head is a pepper. This is Dr. Pepper, if any of you drink it. Or this one, there's a gator, and he looks like a kind of EMT. It's Gatorade. So those are always fun, and they really make you think, and you definitely get better at them. Tribonds, I'm going to do this very quickly, is a game you can play online. You can buy the board game. It's really fun. And basically what you have to do is you're given 3 words and you have to find something they have in common. So picnic, card, and pool are all tables. Instant, hidden, and candid are all cameras. And this goes on. And again, some are more difficult than others. You really have to put on your thinking cap, and it's fun. Brain teasers, any kind of brain teaser, it can be verbal, nonverbal. It really makes you think. So for example, if I gave you this sentence in yellow and said, count the number of times the letter F appears, and you'd go through it. And a lot of times people do not find all 6 of them. And there's a reason, and it's, people skip over things. That's why paying attention and concentrating are so important. And this is, I think, the last thing I want to show you. I haven't done this with my current workshops. I play math bingo. So everyone gets a different card on a sheet of paper. And what I do is, let's say I say you have to get any line, diagonal, horizontal. I might say 10 plus 5. You have to add it up in your head and see if you have any 15s, okay? 7 plus 4, you have to figure out it's 11. So that's one game. And this is a more difficult version. I might say 11 is the answer. And you have to figure out if any of these come out to be 11. So 21 minus 10 is 11. And it's great and it's fun. And actually, we always gave prizes. We used to give scratch off lottery tickets. My only request is that you take me out if you win. Okay, so here, like, these are just some examples of bingo games. So what's important in my groups, in these brain fitness workshops? Cross-training our brains to work all our thinking skills, not just some of them. Doing activities that are not too easy and not too difficult. So the right level of challenge, increase the level of challenge as skills get stronger. Repetition, we need to keep doing rebus puzzles. We just don't do the same ones, or we do memory grids, but not the same. And above all, to have fun. And I will tell you that I usually end all my workshops with jokes. And I'm just going to give you a couple here. This is why we need to exercise our brains. This couple goes to the psychologist or psychiatrist, and he says, so how's the memory holding up? And of course, you can see. And then, where did I leave my keys? Why did I come into this room? Oh, I forgot my phone. Oops, I left my credit card. My bad memory is the only reason I reach my daily steps goals. So that's it for me. It went on a little long, but anyway. So I hope you get the gist of what we do and what I do and what the group does.
Do you recommend any apps like Luminosity on our phone to play with during the day?
Yeah, the apps are fine. Here's what I want to say about them. The apps are, of course, are good. The problem with the apps is you do them alone, which means you have to have self-motivation to really stick with it. When you're in a group, it becomes like an event, and so you're motivated to keep doing it. It doesn't mean you can't fill in, but to just rely on the apps, you have to be sure that you have the right personality to stick with it.
Are there any ones you recommend though?
Though I tend to do puzzles on apps more than apps that work brain skills, because when Lumosity came out, I was actually working with kids on building their thinking skills, and it's such a difference to me in working in person, one-on-one versus an app. It was just a totally different level of intensity and engagement. For instance, I have the New York Times online,
Yeah,
and
the puzzle.
the puzzles, they're great. They're great. And if you do them every day, you're working your brain. So
Is
that's
there a
why-
particular one you like?
which
You would
a puzzle?
recommend? Yeah,
Oh,
on an
well,
app.
I can tell you my routine every morning. I do spelling bee, which I love. I do Vertex. A lot of people don't do. Vertex is a drawing puzzle. And I like that it's just visual. I find it challenging. I mean, there are all these little dots and you have to connect them and create a picture. And I like, I do Wordle now, and I do tiles, and then I do the crossword. And I really look forward to this morning routine. I really love it. So I recommend them because they all tap into different skills. That's the whole point of working your brain. You need to use different skills, not just one thing all the time.
Shelley,
Yeah.
I noticed also that Brain HQ touches a lot of different areas in training.
I say that again.
Brain HQ, it's an
Yeah.
excellent choice.
I
I was going to say I'm doing wordscapes also. Goes
I-
along.
I have nothing against any of these, and it doesn't mean that you. I mean, again, I like about the group is that it's different. It's like taking a class versus going home and working on your own. So they both work together. It can't hurt. And there are also books. I'm gonna hold something up. I don't know if can you see it?
Mhm.
Read what it says. It's very hard.
Yeah,
to see.
I can put it in the chat if you like.
It says 299 on-the-go games and puzzles to keep your brain young. If you go on to Amazon and put in brain fitness books, there are many, many, many. And I have a lot of them. I like this one a lot. The author is Nancy, Nincy, Linde, Linde. And she's really good. She has more than one book. And another book I like, which is under my computer, but I'm going to pull it out. There are many of these. They're called brain games, and they're spiral bound, and it's lower your brain age in minutes a day. And there are many different ones. I don't see any author on the cover. They're really good. They're fun. I get a lot of ideas from these books to use in my workshops.
I have a question. Do you think that there's a difference in the benefit of doing puzzles on paper as opposed to doing them on a screen? Like doing a crossword puzzle on paper or doing a crossword puzzle on a screen? Do you think there's a difference?
I think for me, the only difference is it's frustrating to have to cross out or erase when I've made a mistake. I saw the app makes it much easier.
I was thinking in terms of adding the element of using your hand and your eye as opposed to just, tapping a screen.
Yes, and I'm sure that makes some difference. In terms of the puzzle itself, it might not, but it is your hand-eye coordination is being used very differently when you do it on paper.
Yeah. Well, like I do jigsaw puzzles. I used to do jigsaw puzzles on a table. Now I do them on my iPad.
And jigsaw puzzles are great. You saw the nun. She was doing them. They are great for your brain, by the way. See, what's funny? I would get much more pleasure out of doing a real jigsaw puzzle versus an online. Yeah, go ahead.
Question. Does babysitting a 1.5-year-old and a 4.5-year-old count as socializing?
No, that counts as fun.
It is
Yes.
fun.
It is fun. There are certainly, I'm sure you can do very different things with both of them.
Oh,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a lot of fun.
Again, things are probably so easy for you. Some of the things that you might not be as interested in them or as excited about them because they're not challenging you, but they are challenging them.
It's fun watching them learn.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I played chess with the 4.5-year-old. I was telling him how all the pieces moved. That was fun.
And you know what? If you can teach them or take them through activities, that's great for your brain. Teaching, explaining, even if you cook with your kids, explaining what ingredients there are, how you measure them, how you mix them, what you cook them on, what temperature in the oven. That's great for your brain and it's great for them.
Okay.
Could you tell me a little more about the Vertex drawing app?
Oh,
Is that an app?
That's New York Times. That's on the New York Times app.
And somebody just put all of this stuff,
It's
by the way, I think Heidi's been a busy beaver. She put a lot of this stuff in the apps, in the
Right.
chat. So if anybody, yes, Heidi, you're right.
Thank you, Heidi.
But thank you, Heidi. So yeah, so people, it's in the chat if you want to cut and paste it or copy it. It is all available to you.
Thank you.
And I put in the chat how to register for our winter classes for Maintain Your Brain. And Gloria, you can wave to everyone.
Yeah, no,
get your
absolutely. We
information.
really want to encourage everyone to register for Shelley's class, so you'll get lots more of these brain games and different activities and
many
so
more,
on.
many, many,
And
many.
an opportunity to socialize virtually.
Yes, which is
Exactly.
terrific.
Right. Does anybody have any other questions? There's a lot of comments in the chats, but no actual questions. Does anybody actually have a question for Shelley?
I have a question about sleep.
Go ahead, Jean.
So is it better to, assuming that for an adult, 8 hours is good, does it make a difference whether it's 1 o'clock at night and you sleep the 8 hours and you wake up at 9 or 9:30? Or is it better to go earlier and wake up earlier?
I think it's all a matter of personal preference. What I would recommend is keeping it somewhat consistent. So don't go to sleep at one night and then the next night it's 8 o'clock and keep changing it, because the amount of, I find for me that as I get older, having consistency helps me do things more efficiently because I'm not crowding myself with all sorts of changes in my environment that throw me off. And I believe, like, I go to sleep early, I get up very early, but I do it all the time. And the few times that I go out and I come home really late, well, it takes me a day to catch up, even if I've slept the same number of hours, because I'm not used to that schedule. But I do think getting that amount of sleep is great whenever you get it. It gives your brain time to work and filter out the junk.
And Jean, that's a
Yes.
great lead in.
Yes.
You know, we're not always lucky enough to get a lead in.
Yes, thank you, Jean.
Yeah, Jean, we planted you here. So we have a webinar on sleep coming up on, Pam, usually you're my
February 9th.
February 9th. Thank you
Oh,
very
great.
much.
Thursday, and it's also at 4. So
Right.
consistency is very important.
That's right, exactly. And then we do have a 3-session, am I correct, or 4 on sleep?
Session. We
3
have a
sessions with
workshop on
right.
better
With-
sleep. Maintain your brain through better sleep, which will begin on Thursday, February 16th at 4.
With Dr. Caitlin
With
Miranda,
Dr.
who has done our
Caitlin Miranda.
who did our cognitive training. So anybody who's questioning sleep for better health and for better brain fitness, we have lots of stuff that's coming on about sleep, which is
That
really,
is great.
really
That is
critical.
great.
Yeah, we're
in brain-
really
on brain
excited
health.
about that. And, you know, if you want to learn more techniques, please register for, you know, both the webinar and our 3-part workshop.
Is that
Right.
going to be recorded by any chance? So if we're away, we can see it when we get back?
The webinar will probably be recorded. The
I
class
don't
will
know
not.
about the classes. I don't
Right,
think
the
so.
class will not, but the webinar will be recorded, probably. We always have to ask the presenter, so we haven't
And
done
we
that
have
yet.
not
Thank
asked
you.
that question yet.
Depends on the presenter.
Yes.
My information's in the chat, so if anybody has not registered for our amazing classes, please do so. Please let me know that you're interested in the classes. We do need registration.
Yeah, and again, I think that taking all the different classes is such a feast for your brain health, because like I mentioned sleep, but I don't know all the science behind it and all the steps you can do to make it best for you. But it's an important part of your day-to-day thinking, how you feel if you're, if you don't sleep enough, how you just don't, you may feel foggy, or you're just not as sharp as you might be. It really makes a difference.
You also need to concentrate on when the course is, because there are different times on different days. Crazy.
That's also how you maintain your brain.
Absolutely.
Randy, we didn't know we were doing that, but now I know that that's an additional piece of brain health.
I thought that was
It's something.
intentional.
It was all intentional.
Of
That's
course
right.
it was, wasn't it, Gloria? Okay.
Absolutely. And we're so brilliant that that's what we did.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're good. I think we're
I
good.
think-
All right, everybody.
Thank you all so much for spending the hour with me.
Thank you so much. It
Thank
was
you.
excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Great.
much.
Good.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you so much.
Great techniques in there.
Yeah, thank you, Shelley,
There's
for
a
your
lot of stuff.
expertise and your
Thank you.
guidance.
Thank
All right,
you, Shelley.
everybody. Yes, well, thank you so much. And remember, Shelley has a class. So if anyone's interested in registering, we're going to keep plugging that class. It starts on January 30th, Monday, January 30th
Yes.
at 10:30.
10:30.
And it's 8 sessions. So if you're interested in joining Shelley and learning more about brain fitness, brain games, register for the class. That's really
Please
important.
Is there a class tomorrow with Caitlin?
Yeah,
Pam?
yes, there is. Are you registered, however?
At 4
I believe
o'clock.
I am.
Yeah.
What time is the class?
4
4.
o'clock.
4 o'clock. Okay.
That's the magic hour.
All
All right, everybody. Everyone take care. Take care of your
Thank you.
brain. Do some brain games tonight, tomorrow. Sleep well, and hopefully we'll see
Drink,
you all.
drink plenty of water.
Right, drink plenty of water, eat your vegetables,
you.
all the good stuff. All right, everybody.
Thank you
Take
very
care,
much.
Goodbye,
Great.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
everybody.
So, well, I gave you the letters yesterday, so I still have.
Right, so I packed them.
Okay.
And if you